While friends die unjustly, let men live in blind peace until the ravisher is at the gate. What then will they do? Match naked hands against iron and die in vain? Or flee, leaving the cries of women behind them? Will they say to Eru, "At least I spilled no blood," the mariner's wife? Hello and welcome to all the men and women of the West. I'm Joe. As you can guess from the initial quote, this video is going to be about a character from the Mariner's Tale, with this being a revisit to an extent of a video I did earlier, as well as a revisit of the Rings of Power. All I'm going to say about the title of this video is that it's basically the idea of how the first season should have been. Now, there's something Redbook has said which was very insightful in a recent stream of his. If it takes you 3 seasons to get started, you wasted 2 seasons. I know that the Council of the Ring is going to be making an entire season of videos of how the first season of Rings of Power should have been, and I felt that I had to make a video kind of selling the argument for why Aldarion should have been the lead of the Rings of Power, and how it's really a wasted opportunity going down the route they did. And I will be making a series of videos about how each season should have played out, or should play out to an extent, at least as I perceive it, as a bit of a fan series of videos. Aldarion is the main character of the Mariner's wife, and he is a bit of an Odysseus figure who goes off on many adventures, or even one can compare him to Sinbad. He goes off on many adventures off to sea because he's struck by wanderlust, often leaving his wife at home, and she doesn't really like this, and they have the worst custody arrangement since Feanor and Nerdanel in the entirety of the Legendarium. And so this could have added for cheap drama, and the thing about the Mariner's wife is that Aldarion is totally in the wrong regarding it. And he also gets caught up in a power struggle with his father, Menelder, so that he's a very gray character. On the other hand, on his adventures, he undertakes a great deal of heroics that win him the affection of Gil-galad and Elrond and others. Council of the Ring will be making a series of videos about how there could have been a really, really great season involving adventure, a bit of an Odysseus Odyssey type story or set of stories, where you'd have something also with a bit of the tone of the Sinbad from the Arabian Nights stories. He hasn't told me much. He's given me a bit of insight into what he's going to do, and it sounds really cool, and I totally support it, of course. The thing is, the tone should have, in the first episode, one of kind of anger between Menelder and Aldarion, as Menelder did not want Aldarion going off on adventure, and Aldarion really, really wanted to, so that you have a bit of this conflict between the two. With Aldarion going off on these fantastic adventures, I kind of think that you could have brought in the Greek sirens, could have brought in, for example, a dragon at some point, could have even brought in a Leviathan as a major oceanic monster for him to fight. I actually think that there could have been something like Circe from the Odyssey, derived a lot of ideas from the Greek myths. We could have also seen things like some of Sinbad's adventures involving giant fish, mermaids, also acts of trickery on different islands and all throughout Middle-earth, as Aldarion had to trick men from what would later become Harad out of treasure and booty, stories rather, also like the third Narnia movie. And so there would have been a lot of potential for this. And tonally, yes, it could be dark, but you could explore more the wonder of Middle-earth rather than the darkness in that first season. With there being, yes, a little darkness, but tonally, it should have been one of wonder, like, look at this vast world. Look at all these islands. Look at all these different lands. And you could have even had, for a more melancholic episode, a visit to Tol Morwen and kind of explore a bit of the tale of Turin Turambar, at least in a bit of a recounting by Elrond. Naturally, Elrond should have been a bit of the mentor and should have been a little more full of idealism to an extent regarding Numenor and humanity. That said, he should still be a bit, in my opinion, of the inexperienced elf. But he is, by this time, pretty much the number 2 guy, to an extent, of Gil-galad. But you could see him kind of grow into that role still, and kind of grow more comfortable with himself, both as the deputy and herald of Gil-galad and as Aldarion's mentor. In turn, Gil-galad would have to be the already experienced, wise, elder statesman of the elves. Galadriel would, of course, be an elder stateswoman, providing a lot of wisdom and advice, and even warmth towards those like Gil-galad and Elrond. We could also see her possibly investigating matters. This would be more of a at-sea type of story, so that we'd see Elrond and Galadriel possibly at sea rather than on land. That said, Celebrimbor would have to come in as another major cast member, and I feel that Celebrimbor would have to have a major role because it is important to start building him up in preparation for season 2. And I know in my last Fix-It video I said, well, he should just be the main character until the Rings of Power are forged. And I still kind of stand by that. I just think that for the human main character, it should be Aldarion, so that you basically have 2 co-stars. They could either be on the same boat or in different locations, with the 2 eventually meeting. But you could have Celebrimbor be a major blacksmith friend of sorts of Galadriel, and you could kind of see his romance with Galadriel, sort of, the love triangle I mentioned in the other video. And maybe Celebrian could be a bit of a, well, Galadriel's daughter, of course, and Celebrimbor dotes on her, kind of wanting to prove his worth as a stepfather. Or at least, even if he got snubbed by Galadriel, you could still have him be devoted in a way, a bit of a father figure. That way you give a bit more depth to the relationships. In turn, the figure of Tar Menelder could be someone who is wise and gentle, but also getting tired of his son's wanderings. What we could always have is, with the finale probably ending in the death of Arendis, and with Aldarion pretty much ending up depressed over that, rightfully blaming himself. Like the episode before that showed the letter. Now, I'm still attached to my idea that Aldarion may have forged the letter, so that if they went that route, it could give a bit of a darker side to his character, with this hinting at what's to come, with the likes of maybe Elrond finding out and not being too keen on that or impressed. And while he acknowledges the importance and the need for Numenor to be on side of the elves and to be careful in preparing for the coming shadow, he is, however, disturbed by this growing darkness in Numenor a little. Just a little. You have Aldarion who starts to take a darker path, but he's still trying to help the elves to an extent. The problem is he's already succumbing a little to the idea of the ends justify the means. With Celebrimbor, on the other hand, taking an opposite slant and wanting to constantly be a do-gooder, so that you can almost have this contrast between the 2. But do let me know what you think of this first season idea of Aldarion as the human lead and Celebrimbor as the elven lead, with maybe Elrond in the background as kind of a mentor figure. I'm thinking of doing a season 2 story idea and how that might play out. And don't forget to smash that like and that subscribe button as though you were Eru Iluvatar wiping out Numenor.